Welcome on, everybody. Who's got next? Michigan football recruiting podcast brought to you by Maize Blue Review. We got a fresh coat of paint officially now over on the On3 network. Obviously, Rivals moving forward will be the recruiting coverage, all the high school coverage. So On3 Rivals coming together to form the best coverage for all things college sports, high school sports, football, basketball, recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, you name it. And Maize Blue Review is a part of the network. We couldn't be more excited about it. Search for us, Maize Blue Review, over on the On3 platform. You can subscribe now, get access to the Den, best message board community among Michigan football fans. A little bit of a in-between still right now with the merger. Some things on the old site, some things on the new. But we are just absolutely thrilled to be a part of the On3 conglomerate, if you will. So, not a lot going on lately. Very busy couple weeks. We told you guys this was coming. This is probably exceeding our expectations, but we got a lot to get into. A lot of Michigan football commitments, almost a historic run, and there's more coming. How good can this class be? The answer is really, 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 really good. So let's get into it. Our recruiting insider, Mr. Aidan Sen. Like I said, not been too busy lately, right? Just incredibly busy.
Just a couple of commitments here and there. Nothing special.
You're freezing up a little bit on me, buddy. I don't know if it's... There you go. He cleaned up a little bit. There we go.
Sorry. Yeah, not too many commitments, just a couple here and there. But
So let's get into
but can you hear me?
Yeah, your Wi-Fi is just scrambling a little bit. I don't know if there's...
Hold on, I'm going to
Darbo, do me a favor. Is that me or is Aiden blipping out on you a little bit? Darbo must have left already. He just stayed for the first few seconds. Now you look okay, though. Try and talk for me. Nope, you're frozen up again. Bummer. All right, he's completely froze. I'm assuming he's heading to find a new spot right now. Yeah, can you get it? Can you get a different spot? Your Wi-Fi is freezing up.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take him down for a second while he figures that out. Sorry, guys. All right, so yeah, we're gonna get into the commitments here. Obviously, the defensive line has gotten a lot of attention. The trench mob they're going by with Carter Meadows, Julian Walker. Apologize, I'm looking over here at my notes here. Joining Titan Davis, and of course, I'm trying to remember now who is in the other one in the 4-for-4. I'm such a blur on these things. Boney. Boney was the other one in the 4-for-4. Kind of reminiscent of that 2023 recruiting class as well. So Walker, I don't know if you guys have been watching the South Carolina fans. I think message board geniuses got a hold of one. They are freaking out because his father obviously is a part of the strength and conditioning staff over at South Carolina. So I think they've probably been counting on his commitment for a couple years now. Did I do some sunbathing recently? Yeah, I got burned bad, dude. You can see I'm peeling up here. It's kind of gross. But anyway, yeah, they're pretty upset about losing him. But you remember coming out of that official visit, Walker's dad had incredibly positive things to say about Michigan, and that he hadn't seen something like that before, which I'm sure Mr. Beamer down in South Carolina didn't appreciate, but it is what it is. And talking a little bit about Julian Walker right now, his commitment, and obviously South Carolina fans not handling that very well, but talk a little bit about his commitment and obviously his relationship with Carter Meadows and how much that played a factor as well.
Yeah, so he committed yesterday. That one was expected, I think. I think we'd known about that one for a couple of days. That one was obviously surprised. So his dad, Jamil Walker, is the strength and conditioning coach at South Carolina. So as he said, I think they expected him to be a commitment. And as a result, not many other programs had actually offered him. I think he only had about 10 Division I offers. As many high major programs had pretty much written him off as a potential target, just based on the fact that they assumed he was going to end up at South Carolina. But Michigan ended up winning out. He had a really great official visit. He's got a strong relationship with Carter Meadows. Honestly, I don't think that one gets done unless if Carter Meadows doesn't commit. I think that those two had a really strong relationship. We had a chat yesterday morning. I'll have an article up on that on the Maize Blue review a bit later today. But I think that one, their relationship was really strong. And I think the idea of playing with him really enticed him. And I think Michigan's campus just really impressed him. You'd think growing up around South Carolina, which is obviously an established SEC program, you'd think there wouldn't be much that could really surprise him and take him back in terms of football campuses. But I think that Michigan did a really good job. And the academics on offer also really enticed him. And I think Michigan just did a good job recruiting him and winning out because I think that one was kind of seen as a Hail Mary. A visual visit, I guess. I don't think anyone really expected much to come out of it, including myself, but I'm very happy to be correct, to be proven wrong.
That's why we talk so much about getting these kids on campus and how important that is, right? That could be a real game changer. We've always said too, there's no real bad official visits. Like that is super rare if somebody has a bad official visit. So, but yeah, with his dad allowing him to, carve out his own path and make his own decision, which I think is awesome. We've obviously seen some recruitments in the last couple of years that's not the case, and there's different family dynamics. But at the end of the day, that I think that support and that family atmosphere too. We keep talking about that. I know it can come off as corny sometimes, but Michigan really nails that, and we see that with parents of commits, parents of recruits, parents of current players are often a part of these recruiting visits and building relationships with other parents. I, being an older man myself, I talk to a lot of parents and they keep in touch long after their players leave. So it's a really cool dynamic. But yeah, the idea of Walker and Meadows in the future, pretty incredible. Somebody had asked if these are because of Lou Esposito. I don't know how you don't give Lou a bunch of credit. He's a top 5 recruiter in the country right now. And also his partner, I don't want to mess it up now. It's David Denham, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Came over from Western. That was kind of an underrated piece where, Michigan's doing a lot of, we see it with Soup Campbell at wide receiver. We see it with Fred Jackson at running back, where they're adding these extra guys, right? That really allows dual coach, take advantage of the new rules, take advantage of the dual coaching and allow the recruiting guys to do the recruiting. And Denham is a huge piece of this as well. Bizzle, if you messed up, go ahead and ask your question. I see that came through, but yep. All right. Man, I'm overwhelmed here. Let's move to the other side of the trenches where Michigan had some huge success as well. We talked about that offensive line board and, who was going to drop where, first come, first serve. Was Ojo trending this way? What was going on? And we said for a long time that Mr. Marky Walbridge was probably Michigan's top target at tackle. And then you get the return investment on Malakai Lee, who specifically called out the fact that those coaches came to Hawaii to see him so much and all the effort they put in. But those 2 tackles come off the board for Michigan, quite a haul. And I would argue that the top 2 guys they probably wanted.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I think I'd honestly say they had Malakai Lee and Marky Walbridge ahead of Felix Ojo, to be honest. I don't think that'd be a crazy thing to say. I think they could have pushed harder for Ojo on his visit. I think they could have gone harder NIL-wise, but they chose not to, I think. I think that was an active decision. He's looking like he's training towards either Ohio State or Texas now. But Malakai Lee and Marky Walbridge are both really big ads, I think. I think Malakai Lee is really a true offensive tackle, 6'7", 300+ pounds. Elite movement skills, really, really fluid mover. And he's been on Michigan's board for a while now. I think Grant Newsom and Sharon Moore have both visited him multiple times. I think Grant Newsom made it out to Hawaii 4 times so far throughout Lee's process, which, as you said, really resonated. You can check out those articles at the Maize Blue review. I think 3 articles now I've had on Lee. He's discussed that fact as being a major factor as to why Michigan led for his recruitment at various stages into why they went out in the end. I think that's a great ad. And then in terms of, I think that we could see him in the future on the other side of Andrew Babalola. I think he'll fit in well as that right tackle position. And then you look at Marky Walbridge, bit of an under the radar recruit. I don't think he hasn't gotten much national coverage purely based on the fact that he doesn't talk very much. He didn't talk to reporters very much. He doesn't share with his coaching staff, his camp that much about his recruitment process, and his parents as well are pretty closed off on that kind of stuff. But he's a great add too. I think he fits more of that swing tackle mold that we saw of Ty Haywood last cycle. I think that there's a likelihood that he could take snaps at both offensive tackle and interior offensive lineman. But like Lee, he's got great movement skills, really high upside, I think. And he was down to Alabama and Penn State, both of whom were pushing for him. So it's not like Michigan just won out for
Right.
some recruit that only won in Michigan. Like he had genuine offers and genuine interest from Alabama and Penn State in particular, among other SEC and Big Ten programs. But yeah, both are really big wins. I don't think that can be understated. I know that both have been seen as Michigan leans for some time, but I think they were both pretty big wins considering like the competition that Michigan had.
Yeah, and we've seen on Michigan's side, especially in the previous class in 24, like you can lead for a long time, you got to close, right? Like you got to get the kid to actually commit. And obviously, these kids got signed too, still, right? They're not in the class yet. That's another piece of it. But again, that long play from Michigan, excuse me, the long play from Michigan, the relationship building, Newsom making those trips. I know some people have joked like, "Oh shucks, he had to go to Hawaii, poor him," right? That's not something a lot of coaches do, right? Like that obviously resonated with him. It was special. So I'm torn on Walbridge because I'm with you. I think part of the reason his ranking has been maybe lower than it should be is that perception of being a swing. Is he going to move to guard? Is he not? And we've seen with guys like Avery Gatch that can affect their recruiting rankings. I keep hearing from Michigan people they love him at tackle, that's where they plan on putting him. And I think part of it is you brought it up with Lee, you brought it up with you brought it up with Walbridge, obviously, and I think it's pretty consistent across all of these offensive line targets. Being more athletic and having the feet to get to that next level and go out in front has clearly been a theme of the offensive line moving forward, trying to find guys that aren't just maulers in the trenches, but that can get down the field too and move.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's get into kind of an interesting thing. Obviously, Kenneth Goodwin, a guy we thought would be in the Michigan class for a while, commits to SMU last night. That was anticipated after Dabney, another guy, Markel Dabney, we thought would be in the class for a little bit. And then there was kind of a weird pause where maybe Pitt was still involved. Kind of give an update just really on where linebacker recruiting sits right now, because obviously perception is Dabney took that spot. Goodwin moves on. There's still some other names coming up in this little wave of commits, but I think of Owusu Boateng being kind of a late ad last year as well, even though they were kind of in on him. But that feels like a spot where maybe Michigan could circle back down the road too and find some other plugs, but just kind of reset that board now that Goodwin out, Dabney in, kind of thing.
Yeah, so the two recruits that we're looking at next for commitments at the linebacker position is DQ Forkpa and Caden Catchings. So DQ Forkpa is a four-star out of Florida. He's down to a final four of Michigan, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. And he's set to commit on July 12th. Uh, Based on my intel, Florida and Michigan are the top two. I'm unsure of which is the leader at this stage, but I don't think a final decision has been made yet, despite some predictions being put in. Nothing's been confirmed. The program's unaware. They haven't been told if he's committed anywhere yet. So that one's still an open race. Um, the other one is Caden Catchings. He's the Liberty commit that Michigan
Yeah.
offered last month. Under the radar recruit. I haven't looked into his film too much yet. It's on my list of things to do. But if Michigan pushes there, they can get a commitment.
Real short list we've given you recently as
Yeah.
well. So
um, it's they can if they want him, they can get him. Same one for Kenneth Goodwin. I don't know why, but they chose not to take that commitment. If they had pushed, they could have gotten him, but it's beyond me why they chose not to. I think you'd resonate with that
yeah.
probably.
Yeah, I don't know how I want to handle this. Because I mean that is the perception was it was one spot and Dabney got it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, these are guys that had commitment dates announced. It's not like the end of the cycle, and it's not a high pressure situation where Michigan's got to be like, look, we need to know what you're doing. So first come, first serve. I mean, I am higher on Goodwin. I trust the staff. I'm not going to, whatever. And I'm not really in position to bash kids. I've never been a big fan of we'll analyze the film and we'll tell you what we think, but I'm not in there. But just on paper, if you ask me, Goodwin or Dabney, Goodwin looks like the better prospect, right? So
I mean,
it's interesting.
I see why they picked Dabney, because if you look at his
Of
film,
course.
he's incredibly athletic, incredibly versatile. I mean, I've got a whole article up on it. I think I interviewed multiple of his coaches, interviewed him. And I can understand why, like, the thinking behind that decision, right? Because he fits that Mason Curtis mold that we saw them
Yeah.
pick up a couple cycles ago. Because realistically, he can play safety, linebacker with some development. You can chuck him in at edge. I mean, put him in at wide receiver, running back. He's going to make an impact wherever he plays. But Goodwin, I
Yeah.
think, had that more established skill set, which Michigan currently doesn't have in terms of recruitment. And we're looking at Caden Catchings, who, from the little I've seen, is raw, right?
Yeah.
And that's the other recruit on the board. So if Michigan doesn't seal with Forkpa, then we're left with just Dabney, who realistically isn't a true linebacker, and Catchings, who's a raw linebacker. And with Hausman and Barham going off to the draft, you're looking to try and fill in that base. And you're realistically looking to try and bring in, at every position, you want a balance of developmental players and established players. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do that this cycle.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I do think that's a big piece of this that maybe is a little inside baseball, right, in terms of what Michigan's strategy has been going forward. I also like how you framed it, because I am glad Dabney's in this class. I think he's a really,
Oh
really
yeah,
good
for
player.
sure.
I want to make sure.
I'm not hating on him at all.
No, I think I'm just more surprised by it feels like there was an either or dynamic, and I'm surprised that existed end of June, early July. So let's reframe that, because like I said, I want to make sure I'm not coming across like I'm bashing Dabney. That's not right.
Yeah.
So
Also, just to touch on one more thing. Braden Rouse. I talked to him today.
Yes.
I talked to his dad this morning. That one's not done yet. I think he was also seen as a bit of a write-off. Coming out of his official visits. I myself thought of him as a Tennessee lock, but he said that he's not making a commitment soon. It's not sealed right now. He's still talking to coaches. I think he's going to make more visits potentially before he comes to a decision. Obviously, this can change. I mean, now that I've said this, he'll probably announce later today that he's committing
it
tomorrow.
happens every time, dude. You had that it was Krempin on the last show.
Yeah. But and I put him in the mock recruiting class as well. But I think there's a chance we get Rouse. And then the other one was Abrams. He's committing later this week or next week. That one's wide open. I don't think anyone has a clue where he's committing at this stage. Him and his dad are both pretty nondescript. I don't know what the word is.
Yeah.
But
closed off. Keep close to the vest, whatever.
I mean, they're not closed off in the sense that they talk to everyone, but they just don't really give like a clear lead or anything.
Right. Yeah, honestly, I don't know why you would. I've always thought that was kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I appreciate it, but yeah, everybody handles their cycles a little bit differently, and you got to respect what's their priority, right? But want to touch on the linebacker piece. One more thing on that, and just roster building in general. Part of the reason Michigan is doing so well right now is because they were so prepared for this new landscape. And I think they envisioned a very NFL-like roster build in terms of the way the recruiting share would work, in terms of the way NIL would work. And what I think we're seeing with recruiting is Michigan reacting to transfer portal cycles. If you want to think of that like NFL free agency, there are positions that are very, very hard to gain in the transfer portal at a certain skill level experience, and they're overpriced. I hate to use that term, but when you pay a guy a bunch of extra NIL because you're desperate, that has a trickle-down effect to the rest of your roster, right? You have to be consistent with what you're telling kids during recruiting in terms of what their earnings are going to be throughout their career, right? And if you jump the kid for somebody else in the portal and you end up overpaying for him, that can have a negative effect. So tackle, we've seen left tackle, there's just not these elite left tackles in the portal. There's kind of these guys with some experience who want elite tackle money. So what has Michigan been doing the last couple cycles? Hammering tackle recruiting. Wide receivers, same thing. There's great wide receivers out there, but in terms of fitting into your roster building, right? So let's go out and get wide receivers, pass rushers, right? These obviously quarterbacks, another one too. So Michigan in recruiting is really addressing the spots where you want to get your own guys and have a good shot of developing them and having them on your team, and also positions where they can have an impact early. Linebacker, we know, is a position Michigan can address in the transfer portal because
that's a good point.
both of their starters are from the transfer portal, right? We also know it's a position that's really hard to come in and play early. So if I can go get Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, I'm gonna go hard after a prospect like that because he's somebody I think that can contribute early at a higher rank. I'm still gonna take a shot on a Chase Taylor, a guy that I have time to develop, and if I miss on him, then okay. But you're not going to spend big dollars in terms of NIL and go nuts on some of the top recruits at linebacker because it's hard to pay off. And I think that also might be a good testament to their faith in, you're right, Houseman, Barham, maybe even Jimmy Rolder leaving after this year. I think that shows, hey, we're going to give Cole Sullivan, we're going to give Owusu-Boateng, we're going to give Troy Bowles a shot this year. Get them some playing time, see what they've got. And if they position us next year where, hey, we think we have some starters, great. If not, we can go to the portal and plug some holes. And I think that might be part of what, and that could change, right? Next year or the year after, all these edges that Michigan's been taking, right? Maybe now I don't need to go after pass rushers and I can spend a little bit more in terms of resources on linebacker. So I think that's probably what is happening too, is just recruiting and roster building strategy.
Yeah, I agree.
John, does Rolder have eligibility? Yeah, he's got a red shirt. So he's a senior this year along with Houseman. So he's got another year remaining. If he might even have 2, because I think he might be able to do a medical as well. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm not 100% sure on that. I would assume Rolder is a really, really solid contributor this year, and should he show the signs, could be the starting Mike next year.
He has 2 years left.
He does have 2 years. Okay. Yeah. So he's got including this year though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So he's got the extra. What I'm not sure about is with his injury, if he can do a double dip of a red shirt and then apply for a medical because he got hurt.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Yeah. But we got him at least 1 more year, but man, 2 more years. That could be intriguing. All right. Let's get into what I think everybody wants to talk about because we're addicted to commits. I've seen some people like, hey man, we haven't had a commit a while. It's like, there was one a day for like a week. What are you talking about? But it's like, oh, I need more. You caused some waves, young man, by dropping in a prediction, which real quick. I don't want to say a lot on this. Predictions are predictions. Aidan was making a prediction, and it was intel based, and he had reasons for putting in that prediction and confidence. But I think that industry of predictions has changed to the point where, I mean, yes, when the kid gives us the graphics or the quotes that he's going to commit and requests a graphic, I can put in a prediction. That's not a prediction, right? So it's still okay to make a prediction. That's all I'm going to say on that. Aidan, based on intel you had and some things we heard coming out of the official visit, talking to some folks, you put in a prediction for Calvin Russell to choose Michigan. He trolling, just having fun, whichever it is. I hope it's trolling. I love when these kids troll us. They absolutely should do it. Jair Hill did it a few years back, leaving Michigan off. But he puts out a top 3 that doesn't include Miami or LSU. And people are like, what? And then he kind of announces his top 4, which does now include Syracuse, which has obviously been the other trending name out there with Michigan. But yeah, now Russell's going to announce Miami is flabbergasted that they're not even a part of that top 4 list. LSU probably thought they had a place. You put in the prediction. Where's your confidence still as we get a couple days away from the 5-star wide receiver making his commitment announcement?
Hi. I'm confident in the pick. He hasn't committed yet. As you said, it was a prediction. It's still an open race. I think that there are a wide array of factors that suggest that Michigan wins out here, right? So, Dusty May, Michigan's basketball coach, has had a relationship with him since year 9. They're recruiting him to play football with the possibility of basketball if he wants it.
Right.
Calvin Russell ruled out programs earlier in his cycle that sort of wrote off the idea of playing basketball at the collegiate level. So that was an important factor, I think. Syracuse is doing the same thing, so they're recruiting him as a basketball player as well. But number 2, Bryce Underwood, hosted him on campus. My source said that that went really well, and that was a positive thing for Michigan, and that resonated really significantly. Uh, the third factor is NIL. I don't think that needs to be said. I think it's pretty well known. NIL is a big factor in this recruitment. Michigan is willing to pay out for Calvin Russell because he's a wide receiver 1 type. They don't have a wide receiver like him. I think we
Right.
went into it a bit more in depth last week, so I won't go into the scouting report side of things. But Syracuse is also willing to pay out. That's the thing. They're willing to put in a big offer for Calvin Russell. But I think eventually Michigan will win out here. I think my confidence level remains high. He's committing on Saturday. I think it's pretty much down to Michigan and Syracuse. I know that he's come out and put out various Final Fours, Final Threes, as you said. Trolling or not, I think Michigan has been in all of them, and rightly so, because they are, I would say, as things stand, his top school. And when you hear from, I think if you look at, I think I've discussed this before, but when you look at like Savion Hyde's recruitment, right, and you look at Andrew Babalola's recruitment, right, with Babalola, people said, "Oh, it's Stanford or Michigan. Oh, it's Auburn
Always
or
those two.
Michigan."
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And with Savion Hyde, people said, "Oh, it's Tennessee or Michigan. Oh, it's Ohio State or Michigan, or it's Georgia or Michigan." Right. With Calvin Russell, people were saying for the last couple of weeks, "Oh, it's Syracuse or Michigan," or "Oh, it's Miami or Michigan." Right. So I think that's sort of telling.
Yeah.
And I remain pretty confident in that pick. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Because obviously things are fluid.
Yeah. Kids, they're kids and they change their minds and things happen. Like I always I always bring up the Najee recruitment because I mean, to this day, even when when Sam first kind of hinted at Sam Webb first hinted at the Bryce Underwood stuff, he was the first one to really have the guts to put that out there. He brought up the Najee Harris thing because that still hangs over everything with recruiting. And the intel wasn't wrong. The kid changed his mind. By his own account, he's standing in the terminal at an airport and Tua says, "Hey, just come with me to Bama, man." He goes, "Okay." Like that was how he made his decision by his own account. So recruiting is recruiting. Yeah, but I think Russell's really intrigued by Bryce Underwood and obviously his relationship with Brady as well. So you got both quarterbacks
Yeah,
there.
that's a good point. Yeah.
And I think he's spoken about this too. And you can see with Syracuse being a factor as well. He's intrigued by the idea of going somewhere and being a great wide receiver at a place that maybe hasn't had that person in a while. Right.
Yeah.
But again, you bring in somebody like Soup Campbell who can speak to, hey, you remember Braylon Edwards? Well, he doesn't remember because he wasn't born, but it's how long it's been. But he could talk about like, hey, I was here for the Braylon Edwards, the Manninghams, like that kind of receiver. That's what we're bringing back here. And I think I said on a previous show too, like when these guys are asking, hey, are you really going to throw the ball? Yeah, if you come here, of course we are. With your Randy Moss like high school tape, you freak. Please come here. Right. So he'd be. I still think Hyder is the more important
Oh,
addition in
yeah.
terms of must get in this
Yeah.
class. But Calvin Russell is such a statement for Michigan in terms of what
Mm.
they're trying to do and what they've said out loud in regards to the offense. And I think to get Bryce Underwood was one thing, to flip him from LSU kid in your backyard, though, right? To add the type of receivers they have already. And then you've got the potential. We didn't even bring him up yet. If you want to touch on Travis Johnson's still out there as well. I mean, this class could end up being at wide receiver, Calvin Russell, Zion Robinson, Travis Johnson, and we've touched on this a bunch, an incredibly underrated Jalen Pyle. That's in that Nico, DPJ, Tariq Black class of wide receivers. And I know you almost can't say that without people going, because it didn't turn out as you had wanted. But this is a class, or excuse me, this is a staff committed to using those wide receivers.
Yeah, for sure. And John I showed in the chat, you are correct. There's a very high likelihood that Travis Johnson, if he were to commit alongside Russell and Pyle and Robinson, would come in and be the best wide receiver in the
Mhm.
group. He's very established. He's committing Friday, I think.
I
Friday.
keep mixing up the fourths and the fifths. I've got it here.
Yeah, he's committing on Friday. That one's looking in
It's July
Michigan.
4, along with Ojo Turntine. And then Russell's the
Yeah,
fifth with Barney, which we should probably talk about him as well. We usually try to do these shows like 20 minutes. There's too much info.
yeah. But yeah, I think Johnson's looking like a Michigan commit. I haven't really seen any intel suggesting he'd go anywhere else. Penn State looked like a leader for a bit, but I think all signs are pointing to Michigan. But yeah, Russell would be a historic ad, really.
So I just brought it up. Let's talk about the secondary because there's some moving parts there. Um, One is an intriguing possible commit on July 5th, along with Russell, Dorian, Barney. Love. I don't know if you've dove into his tape yet at all, but he's like Mikey Sainer still on the outside to me.
Oh
I
yeah, he's so
really like
savvy.
his
Yeah,
instincts are incredible. High IQ corner. That's a
yeah,
guy that's going to come in and not have to be coached up immediately. Like he
yeah, yeah,
understands football. The other interesting piece, obviously, Donovan Webb trending towards Texas Tech now,
yeah.
and people are making some connections with a gentleman out west who, again, if you're I like Donovan Webb a lot. I would be very happy with him in this class. But Mr. Benjamin's tape is outrageous. You do not have to squint hard to see how he could potentially fit in the class as well. He's more into August, I believe, in terms of commitments. But and then there's another corner currently committed to Michigan that I think everybody's kind of always written in pencil, but it looks like it's more and more likely he will be on his way out of the class. So if you want to just break down secondary real quick for me.
Yeah, so I just posted an article in the Maize Blue review for those wanting a more in-depth look at it. But
Did
y-
you?
yeah, only just now, just about like what? Oh, right. But yeah, Brady Jennings looks like he's on the way out. Um, Florida native looks like he's going to to Miami. Sorry. Intel suggesting that after a loss in the family, he's looking to
Yeah.
stay closer to home. Um, And I think that one was expected for a while. Not to say that Michigan wrote him off as a commit, but they obviously hosted him for Victor's weekend, which went well. But it's just looking like all signs are pointing to him going to Florida. Staying home in Florida. Sorry, not going to Florida, going to
Yeah.
Miami. But,
Yeah.
I don't think
Miami,
there's any
Florida,
harm.
Florida State. Those have always
Yeah,
been
yeah.
the three. So yeah. Sorry, I hate to cut you off, but you said it. Yeah.
Oh no, all good.
For those that don't know, his father, who played at Florida State, did pass away like about a month ago. So obviously we send thoughts to him and his family. But I realized the way I framed that before that context might sound bad. It's tough to hold on to these Florida kids. He's a very early commit, so he seemed like somebody who might make his way back down to Florida. Him deciding to do that now after losing his father is obviously 100% understandable. So
Yeah,
I just want to make sure I have that framed
yeah,
correctly. And
yeah, yeah. And
but
I think there was some hope that he might not that he might be okay leaving Florida because both of his brothers committed to play elsewhere. I think one of them chose to go to Indiana and the other one to Mississippi State. Despite having offers to stay in Florida, but that's besides the point.
yeah,
So Dorian Barney, as he discussed, Josh just put in a pick for Michigan to win out that recruitment. He's committing on Saturday. Texas A&M and Penn State have been seen as a competition for a while. Michigan wasn't really seen as a leader until about the spring when Barney came on campus, and that didn't really resonated.
Penn State missing out on Barney and Adams.
Adams, yeah, jeez.
If you would have
Yeah.
told me that a month and a half ago, they were getting both.
Yeah, they had picks in, I think, on 3 had picks in for both to go
Yeah,
to Penn State, and,
crazy.
my intel had similar ideas,
Mhm.
not similar ideas, but I had similar intel, but, yeah, but Barney looks like he's going to Michigan, that one's a big ad, I think his frame and speed suggests that he'd be a nickel, but his instincts suggest that he might still play on the boundary, and I believe he is being recruited as a boundary corner, not as a nickel. That's what Donovan Webb was being recruited as. But as you alluded to, Devon Benjamin is the other one to keep an eye on. Oregon has been seen as a leader for him for a really, really long time. Michigan was seen as out of the mix for him for quite a while.
I thought he was an
He
Oregon commit.
Yeah,
Like that's how much we've thought about him in Oregon. I thought he committed.
yeah,
I was like, oh, he's
yeah, but his
sorry.
May 30 oh, no, sorry. No, you're good. His May 30 official visit was seen as a Hail Mary, really. That whole weekend was kind of seen as a Hail Mary of official visitors. But Zion Robinson ended up committing. I mean, he was a little bit different. I don't think that was as much of a Hail Mary, but I think Michigan was kind of ridden out of Dorian Barney's far out of Devon Benjamin's recruitment. USC was in the mix for a while, but obviously they have 35 commitments at this point, so they're looking elsewhere. And Texas, their official visit also went well, but it looks like it's Michigan and Oregon at this stage. Um, he's got a commitment date for August 2nd. The Wolverine reported that first, but yeah, that one's looking. There's a long way to go. Obviously, it's a full month. But I'm not going to say that Michigan's well positioned at this stage. But the momentum is with the Wolverines right now, is what I'd
I
say.
yeah, I know Oregon people still feel good about getting him, but a
Rightly
little
so.
anxiety, obviously, because you see Michigan's momentum and now they're sniffing around your guy. But he is, and again, him and Webb do play the same position, that kind of safety nickel hybrid. And and your point with Barney, like I said, that immediately I thought of Mike Sainer still watching his tape. Now he's a little taller than Mikey. I think he's 6'1". Barney is
6'2", I
maybe.
think.
Is he 6'2"? Okay, so he's got
Yeah.
the size to play on the outside. Um, but we've seen since the end of last year when Makari Page moved into nickel and some things like what the Ravens have done, which again, the building block of this defense, these bigger nickel players, because a lot of tight ends run from the slot, they can impact the run game. And Benjamin is just a physical. Kind of he's got that Brandon Hillman in him. He likes hitting people, right? It's some Mikey as well in terms of coverage, and then maybe some Jabril Peppers, right? Like he's got, I don't know, he's just got that attitude when he gets into the box and he gets to hit people. He'd be an incredible fit in this defense. So that'll be one to watch
That would just be
once we get
insane
through this move.
if they
It,
managed to get him to commit, that'd just be something else. I mean, getting Calvin Russell to commit, I think getting Devon Benjamin to commit, I think despite all that quarterback wide receiver stuff, I think getting Benjamin to commit would be even more impressive. Just purely based on the fact that for so long he's been seen as an Oregon lock, whereas Russell's recruitment was quite wide open, I think. I think for me that'd be more impressive.
yeah, I think that's fair. And you're kind of bleeding into what the last topic needs to be, which is how good can this class get? I mean, to your point, we're talking about wide receivers from Florida, from Texas, offensive linemen from Texas, players from out west. Michigan's gone full on national in this class. I mean, when you go through, I think there's like one state that has 2 kids from it in terms of commits. I'd have to look again. It might be more now with how many have run, but like they're going everywhere for the best players. And they've shot up the recruiting rankings. I know people love using the 24/7 calculator and adding and removing it, blah, blah, blah. But like I for a while said, look, this is probably going to be similar to last year in terms of where they end up ranked. And it's 3 from Texas. Thank you, John. In terms of where they end up ranked in average ranking, which is actually maybe more impressive because you don't have Bryce Underwood in your class boosting that number with his full rank. But if this all, and again, it probably won't, if we're being honest, like it's so rare that everything comes together. But man, when you're talking about a Russell, a Hyder, a Barney, a Benjamin, probably who knows what else late, this is a top 5 class. It
I
might be,
completely
it might
agree.
be top 3 class. And then I mean, I don't. it's tough to say they could end up with the number one class because other schools are still going to add people and blah, blah, blah. But like we're in that top 3 to 5 range at this point.
Yeah, and you look at the players that are already committed. Markel Blade didn't play his entire junior season, right? He's like top rivals. His top 150 ranking is excluding an entire junior season,
That's a good point.
which
These
he
guys are
didn't
going to go
play.
up.
So he's going to boost. Malakai Lee is without a doubt going to boost. I would not be surprised to see him be a 5-star by the end of the cycle. You look at Calvin Russell, Devon Benjamin, maybe. John Turnstein, I think if they miss out on him, if he goes to Texas, they're still going to recruit him. Kari Adams is still on the board despite committing to Notre Dame. And I don't think we can rule anything out really based on what we've seen so far this cycle. I mean, Savion Hyder looks like he's going to join the class. So then you look at, well, he's not classified as a 5-star. Whoa, what, on 3? Do they have him as a 5-star?
So it's going to be interesting. I don't the rivals rankings aren't going to just completely drop off, right? There's going to be some in between, but yeah, once on 3 is able to move their stuff to rivals, which obviously has begun, but once those rankings get re-released, and then the on 3 industry ranking will adjust to be a 3rd for each class. I'm not sure exactly where he drops, but I mean, he's got to finish as a 5-star. You would think.
Oh yeah,
you would think.
I think there's some recency bias for some of those guys because Savion Hyde hasn't really taken part in any of these off-season camps.
Yeah.
I think once he gets back into play, he'll reassert himself in that 5-star range. But I mean, you look at 5 stars. I think Hyde is looking promising at the moment. Russell's looking promising. Turnstein, as I said, he might join the class later on, even if he commits to Texas. And then Benjamin, as we talked about. Lee, I can easily see shooting up the rankings. Markel Blade, I can see a top 50 recruit there. I mean, I think I think top 5 is well within reason.
And the crazy thing too is some of the guys that are lower ranked right now could get ratings bumps. And even if they don't, I don't know, it's easy to be biased and say you've got your Maize Blue glasses on. We think every player is going to be really, really good, right, in the commitment class. But I mean, in all sincerity, like I saw John mention Vallejo. I mean, I can see him being a player. We've talked about Jalen Piles so much. I don't know what that kid's got to do to get the recruiting ranking respect he deserves. Again, at this point, I kind of hope he doesn't. Keep that chip, kid.
Even Dabney. I mean,
yeah,
like you look at his athleticism, he can be anything really.
Yeah. No, I again, it's tough to say like where, because it depends on what the other classes do, but it's crazy to think it could be top 3. It could be, but I think top 5 for sure is definitely that line.
I think top 10's almost a lock at this point,
which is crazy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you look at like a month ago, really. Like we all thought, like even straight after last cycle, like in January, we all kind of had the impression that this is gonna be a drop-off year, and then we'll regroup in 2027 with what will be a massive in-state recruiting class. But this year is certainly not a write-off. I mean,
I never got that far because I told you, I knew things were gonna pick up, right?
Yeah.
But Carter Meadows, Julian Walker.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I thought they'd get like 1 or 2 of these guys. I mean, I thought they might get like either like Titan Davis or Carter Meadows or something like that.
Exactly.
But they've seemed to be getting all of them, which
yeah, and that's
seriously impressive.
And of course, like I said, now the work goes to keeping it together. But this is where I think Michigan pays off with their strategy, because you see by playing the long game, they're a lot more solid in their commitment. They have these relationships with other players too. I mean, the unison amongst this group of commits I haven't seen in a long time. I referenced like the 2016 class, but like coming out of that official visit, you called it with the 4-for-4 picture. It was like these guys are already talking about playing together, and that was the bond they had. And then you had the intel when you talked to Walker after Meadows committed, and he literally said, "Look, I didn't think he was going to commit this early. He bumped up his recruitment. Am I surprised it's Michigan? No, because of what we talked about on the visit. But man, I got to call him." Right. So like that was a major factor. You know, like you said, Walker might not come here without Meadows and all
like
these dominoes, man.
Yeah, I know. And sorry. Like a lot of them aren't being recruited based off NIL. I know that there's Ohio State fans saying all this like, "Oh, Michigan's just dropping a bag and getting them to commit," but Carter Meadows didn't commit because of NIL, right? He's not gonna flip just because someone drops a bag on his head, right?
Mm.
I think that's the difference between what we've seen with some other classes fall apart later in the cycle. Like Michigan flipped Ty Hayward from Alabama with a bag, right? That's pretty well known. A lot of players flip later in the cycle because they get a bag, but Michigan isn't really taking that strategy this cycle. I don't think. I mean, obviously, there's NIL is a factor, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys have been really high in Michigan for a long time, regardless of NIL, which I think will bode well in terms of keeping this class together.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell rival fans a little secret real quick. If you guys just want to check this out. Every recruit commits somewhere because of NIL. NIL exists. They get paid now. It's part of recruiting. I'm so sick of that. Like
Yeah,
I told people coming into this transition and what's happening with Michigan. I said this a lot in recruiting cycle or specific recruitments last year too. Michigan's not now going after kids they otherwise wouldn't have before. They're not getting kids they never would have before and just giving them absurd NIL offers. They are now such a player in NIL, they're able to stay in recruitments they otherwise couldn't have before. Shamari Earls, I think, is such a clear-cut example of when he flipped to Georgia, he wanted to come to Michigan, but Michigan just couldn't get there in terms of a comparable NIL offer to make it. Like, I can't turn down what Georgia's giving me. Once they could, and it doesn't mean they doubled Georgia's offer. Again, it just has to be comparable because they sold them on everything else. Earls flips, right?
yeah. A lot
I
of agents are going for that, like that, getting them in the same like area range,
right.
and then getting that like final group. I've heard that from a number of agents, as you say.
Yeah, it just has to be where I'm sitting down and I'm doing the pros and cons. There can't be such a significant NIL gap that I'm really hurting myself, right?
Yeah,
I believe in your foundation and your development and your facilities and your resources and your education and your network, everything you're selling on me in Michigan. I believe it. The NIL's got to at least be close. And in some cases,
yeah,
yeah, it is more because Michigan, again, from an NFL like standpoint, the quarterback, the guy that throws the ball, the guys that catch the ball, the guys that protect the quarterback, and the guys that go get the quarterback are more valuable in football. That's how it works, right? So I I don't know. Michigan fans, we did it too when we didn't have the NIL going. When a school's got their NIL going, they're out there posting the memes with the cash and blah blah blah. And when they're losing recruitments, I hate what's happened to football. I hate that it's about money now. It makes me sad. Yeah. Any one of you going to a worse job for less money, raise your hand by all means. Like, and turning down a good job for more money, please. So
I don't know
crazy.
how Ohio State fans think they got Caleb Downs like out of the transfer portal. I mean,
Right. Or
kidding themselves.
you, and again, I mean, this is something you can envy of Ohio State to a respect, right? After having 25 years of these top 5 recruiting classes and always having good years, like they're upset right now after winning a natty and having a top 5 recruiting class. Like, but again, you care about Michigan. You do. You hate losing recruitment battles to them. You hate losing to them on the field. You care a lot more than your natty. Just admit it. But anyway, all right. We are going to sign off here. Really loaded show. We appreciate all you guys joining. Make sure you head over to Maize Blue Review. Again, we're on the On3 platform. Aidan barely touched on the intel and information that he has over there. So please head over there soon. Keep in touch with us. We'll be back next week, probably talking more commitments and more prospects and resetting the board for Michigan football recruiting. It's hard to imagine it gets any better than it is already, but it could. So we'll be talking about it next week. See you guys.